So Google has just launched its fresh new 2021 flagship smartphones, the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro, for those who like it big and are properly minted. The Pixel 6 is quite respectably priced at £600 here in the UK, but the Pixel 6 Pro, if you want to upgrade to that, that'll cost you from £849, a serious extra chunk of change. So is the Pro model actually worth that extra money, and what is the difference between these two smartphones? Which one would be best for you? Well, let's do a full side-by-side comparison, test out the battery life, the gaming chops, all that good stuff. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So the first and most obvious difference between the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro is the size of the bloody things. The standard flagship smartphone is a 6.4 incher, so certainly bigger than previous Google flagship smartphones, whereas the Pixel 6 Pro boosts that to a whopping 6.7 inches. But despite that extra 0.3 of an inch here on the Pro model, you will notice there's not a massive size difference between them, to be fair, and that's mostly because the Pixel 6 has slightly thicker bezels surrounding that display. It's especially noticeable up top and down below, and also that screen doesn't curve gently around the edges of the Pixel 6, unlike on the Pro model. Both the Pixel 6 and the Pro model sport a selfie cam orifice up top centrally positioned, and they're both protected by Gorilla Glass Victus up front as well, which in my test is certainly very shatter resistant. If you drop them on concrete, tend to be absolutely alright, although they do tend to scratch up a little bit easier than previous generations of Gorilla Glass as well. Touch wood, no scratches or scuffs so far to speak of, either on the Pixel 6 or the Pixel 6 Pro. Flip them around meanwhile, and the Google Pixel 6 Pro is protected by Gorilla Glass Victus on that back end as well, whereas the Pixel 6's arse is Gorilla Glass 6. So not as drop resistant, of course, but should hopefully prove resistant to scratches and scuffs if you decide not to slap on a case. And of course, both the new Pixel 6 smartphones sport the wide boy camera chassis that stretches the full width of that back end, which is actually quite good because when you're resting the phone down on a desk or a table, you're poking and prodding that surface, it doesn't rock about the place. And while the standard Pixel 6 sports a tactile aluminium frame, you've actually got more of a glossy vibe here on the Pixel 6 Pro for whatever reason. So both the Pixel phones are tough morphos with that Gorilla Glass plate, and you've got IP68 water and dust resistance on both of them as well, so you can rock them in the shower, the bath, whatever you fancy. And strangely enough, they both basically weigh the same as well. The standard Pixel 6 is 207 grams, the Pixel 6 Pro is 210, so certainly both got a decent heft to them. You'll certainly feel them when they are wedged in your trouser pocket, if that's where you choose to keep them. As for the SIM situation, well, you can only slip a single SIM card into both the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro. There's no space for two SIMs at once, but you do have additional support for eSIM. Now, when it comes to the software, of course, there's bugger all difference between the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro because they're both running the latest, freshest Android 12. It looks like traditional Android, but the aesthetics have just been tweaked to make it look even more gorgeous. You've got some fantastic functionality in there, and as I say, it's the same setup basically on both the Google Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro. Dive into the settings, you'll have the exact same options in here. I really like the way you can change up the app icons as well, so the color palette matches the wallpaper in the background. That's just stunning. And of course, in the pull down toggles as well, you've got fast access to the likes of Google Pay, and you can fully customize this to add in all kinds of additional toggles. Google has been concentrating, go away, I've got to stop saying Google, has been concentrating on the security and privacy aspect of Android 12 as well. So for instance, here in the fast toggles, you can quickly deactivate mic and camera access for all of your apps as well if you just want to be completely left to your own devices. And I really like the new security section here on the Pixel smartphones as well, which basically warns you about any issues you might want to check up on. So for instance, it's suggesting here that I turn on Find My Device just in case I happen to lose my smartphone. It can also tell me if I'm signed into my Google account on any random devices that I haven't used in a while, which is particularly handy if you happen to review a lot of tech. Both Pixel 6 smartphones sport a separate security core to handle all of your sensitive tasks, and you've got that Titan M2 security chip as well to store all of your personal private data. And then if you also factor in the five guaranteed years of security updates on these things as well, then if security and privacy is one of your must-have features, then either of these Pixel smartphones will satisfy. Now, I'm not going to dive into any more of the Android 12 features because, as I said, it's basically the same setup on both of these smartphones, but I am hoping to bring you a full tips and tricks guide for the Pixel 6 phones, so stay tuned for that if you want a more in-depth look at those features, and of course my full review of the Pixel 6's live, again, diving a bit more into some of that software. Before we completely leave the security aspect of things, you do have an in-display optical fingerprint sensor with both the standard Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro. This tends to work quite quickly, sometimes does take its time a little bit. I'm guessing maybe if your fingers are a little bit mucky or moist, just to make sure that it is definitely you, but they do tend to come through in the end. No face unlock as yet on Android, however, so it is basically fingerprints or PIN all of the way. No real difference at the storage front. You've got a choice of 128 or 256 gigs of space, depending on how much money you chuck at Google, basically, and no micro SD support on either of these bad boys. No, I don't want the Assistant go away. Now, if you want an absolutely stunning display for, kicking back with Netflix, Disney Plus, doing a bit of gaming, whatever you're up to, well, the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro will both satisfy, but the Pro model is definitely an upgrade. You've got a 6.4-inch OLED on the Pixel 6, it's a 6.7-incher on the Pro, so more space to really take in all of that action. 20:9 aspect ratio on the standard Pixel 6. It's actually a 19.5:9 on the Pixel 6 Pro, so slightly wider. And while it's a Full HD Plus resolution on the standard Pixel 6, 2400 by 1080 pixel resolution, that's actually bumped up to a Quad HD Plus resolution here on the Pro model, 3120 by 1440. So even though it's bigger, it is that little bit sharper as well, so absolutely stunning clarity. The actual color and contrast output is very similar on both of these smartphones. In fact, I couldn't really notice a difference when I was running a movie side by side. You've got full HDR support, of course, so very crisp contrast, natural looking colors, but you can get some really nice, vivid, vibrant output as well if you kick back with a bit of Pixar or something. Got nice wide viewing angles, both screens reach an impressive top brightness level as well, so no worries with outdoor visibility. If you jump on into the display settings, you'll see they're basically the same. You've got the usual dark themes, you've got eye comfort modes, all of that good stuff. You can play around with the color output as well. It's adaptive by default, but you can boost them yourself as well if you prefer that more vivid output, or chuck it back down to natural if you prefer more realistic images. The only other real difference is with the smooth display, which as you can see there, tops off at 90 Hz here on the Pixel 6. You can actually go all the way up to 120 Hz here on the Pixel 6 Pro, and the Pixel 6 Pro can actually drop it all the way down to 10 Hz as well if there's absolutely nothing happening on screen to help preserve power. You've got a proper beefy stereo speaker output on both the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro as well. No headphone jack on either, sadly, but you do at least get Bluetooth 5.2 support, which so far seems very dependable indeed. And again, no real difference between the two when it comes to the settings. You've got all the usual options, including live caption if you want it now playing, which can detect any song that's going on in the background and then tell you what it is. But of course, one of the most intriguing aspects of the Google Pixel 6 series smartphones is that fresh new Tensor chipset of Google's own creation that's stuffed inside both of them, running the show. That's backed in the standard Pixel 6 by 8 gigs of DDR5 RAM, whereas you've got 12 gigs on the Pro model. And the everyday performance on both the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro, as you'd imagine, nice and buttery smooth no matter what you're up to. It can handle running several apps at once, no problem whatsoever. And basically the same benchmarking scores on both as well if you're into a bit of your geek bench. Not quite as strong as the Snapdragon 888 chipset, the scores that would churn out, but very, very similar indeed, not far off at all. Now, when it comes to gaming, both these phones can obviously handle the likes of Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG, etc. on top detail settings with the highest frame rate options as well. No drops in the frame rate at all, even through the most frantic of games. So basically, I only have myself to blame when I get sniped in the face over and over and over a friggin' again. However, I did notice that the standard Pixel 6 definitely struggled a little bit more with really demanding titles like Genshin Impact, for instance, especially when I bumped it up to the higher detail settings. There were some serious frame rate drops going on in there, whereas the Pixel 6 Pro generally handled it absolutely fine. That could partially be down to the extra memory that the Pixel 6 Pro has, or it could also be down to the more compact form factor of the standard Pixel 6, because I did notice that back end started to get rather toasty after about 30 minutes of gaming. Not much difference between this Pixel pair when it comes to connectivity. Got full 5G support built into that Tensor chipset, although it is only sub 6 here in the UK. I believe that other regions like the US have millimeter wave support as well. You've got a good bit of Wi-Fi 6E with both the Pixel 6 and the Pro model as well, but only the Pro model has ultra-wide band connectivity built in there too. As for the battery tech, well, it's a 4600 mAh cell crammed into the Pixel 6's slightly more compact frame. That's upgraded to a 5000 mAh capacity battery for the Pixel 6 Pro. But don't worry about that difference in capacity. Both the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro will happily see you through a full intensive day of use. No worries whatsoever. That includes a good bit of gaming, a good bit of camera play, plenty of audio streaming in the background while you're messaging, browsing the web, lots of screen on time basically. And yeah, they're not the fastest at recharging sadly. 30-watt fast charging support is where they both max out, and of course you don't get an adapter bundled in the box with either of these phones either, so you will have to provide your own. Otherwise you can also use a Qi wireless charging pad to power them both up, because they both support that wireless charging, and it's slightly faster on the Pixel 6 Pro if you use that second generation Pixel stand. But we are literally talking 21 watt wireless charging on the standard Pixel 6, 23 watt charging on the Pro, so it's not exactly a gulf in the difference between the speeds. So last up, the camera tech, and while the Pixel 6 sports a dual lens rear camera array, that's actually boosted to a triple lens camera effort here on the Google Pixel 6 Pro. And when it comes to the primary camera sensor, there's no difference between the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro. They both sport a 50 megapixel shooter with optical image stabilization built in, and in both cases 2.5 times bigger than the previous generation. And by Jimbo, can these Pixel smartphones spaff out some absolutely fantastic looking photos. Doesn't matter if it's a bright sunshiny day or the middle of the night, you will get some crisp, clear photos with these things. You've also got a 12 megapixel ultra-wide angle shooter that you can swap to on both of these blowers as well, with anti-edge distortion technology, and again, similar results on both. Again, great looking images if you want that more pulled back view to fit lots of action into the frame. However, while the standard Pixel 6 is quite content to leave it right there, here on the Pixel 6 Pro you do actually get a telephoto lens which you can swap to, and this serves up to 4 times optical zoom or 20 times super res zoom, which is a combination of the optical and digital zoom as well. You've got optical image stabilization built in there as well, so it's perfect for getting up close shots from a distance. And they've basically got the same bonus camera modes on both these blowers as well, including a bit of portrait action if you want a nice bokeh style background effect. You've got the new motion feature on both Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro as well. You can use that with the optical zoom here on the Pixel 6 Pro. Got a bit of night sight action as well, and then if you swap to video mode on both the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro, you can shoot up to 4K resolution footage at 30 or 60 frames per second. And again, really stunning results on both of these smartphones. You can really get some nice crisp, natural looking visuals out of these things for your home movies, and of course you do have that optical zoom for the Pixel 6 Pro, which is the one advantage it has over the standard model. And last up, the selfie cam's actually slightly different tech as well. On the Pixel 6 it is an 8 megapixel selfie shooter that's upgraded to an 11.1 effort on the Pro model, and you can get a slightly wider view on the Pro model. I believe it's 94 degrees versus 84 degrees. It's not a huge difference between them, but again, good if you want to cram in lots of mates, if you've got lots of mates, which I'd imagine would be something like this. Smile! So that's a brief overview of the camera tech, but I have actually done a full in-depth Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro camera review and comparison as well if you want a closer look at the photo and video quality and all of those fresh new features. And that right there is, in a nutshell, how the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro stack up. Now, as I say, I've done full unboxings of these smartphones. I've fully reviewed the Pixel 6 as well. My Pro review is on its way, and I'm hoping to do a tips and tricks guide to dive a bit deeper into those Android 12 features, because it is a very slick bit of OS action indeed. So what do you reckon? Are you tempted by either the Pixel 6 or the Pro model? It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a fan-bloody-tastic rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!